All right, let's get going. Brand Innovators has put together an amazing panel for us today. I'm going to tell you why it's such an amazing panel for a second. Marnie Boyer, CMO of MyFitnessPal, she's operating at the intersection of some of the hottest topics and most fraught topics in marketing right now: data privacy, AI personalization, and the GLP-1 cultural moment, which a few of us know about. Liz Vanzura, Solo Brands, parent company for Solo Stove, Chubby's, Isle, and Oro Kayak. Did I get all those right? Yeah. Brand is community model, central to the strategy, right? And you have an unusually candid point of view on brand hype versus business fundamentals. Yeah. So that's exciting. And Whitney, head of brand and media for Zoom.
And Heather Stuckey.
And Heather.
VP of Transformation and Integration of Mars. Welcome to the stage.
Whitney, Zoom is one of the most fascinating brand challenge stories of the decade. The company went from a B2B video conferencing tool to a global cultural touchstone pretty much overnight, and you're leading an AI pivot. So we're going to talk about that. Heather, hi. Thank you. Great to see you here. Mars is one of the largest private companies, and Heather oversees a portfolio spanning confectionery, pet care, food. The scale and portfolio diversity is just amazing. And so you have to think about wildly different consumer relationships across that portfolio. So what an amazing panel to talk about the state of the industry, innovation, disruption, and the road ahead. So I'm going to start by asking the panelists to locate themselves sort of on the map of where your brand actually is in the AI journey: hype, experimentation, or real deployment. So, Whitney, I'm going to start with you at the end.
Yeah, we are leading the way. So Zoom is zooming ahead. If anybody saw those ads in the airport this morning, yeah. With the AI journey, we now are so much more than just meetings. We're an AI-first platform with tools that span all across the business, and AI is at the center of that. And so where we're really leaning in as marketers is how do we message that to customers in a way that's not just AI washing? There's so much of that out there right now, and breaking through the AI slop as well. So, that's where we're really leaning into things like experiential events, webinars, things that are more curated and personal for users to get them to understand our AI journey without getting lost in so much AI that's coming down the pipeline.
What about you?
Hi, so I'm Liz Vanzura with Solo Brands, and I oversee the marketing for Solo Stove. And I would say in our AI journey, we are somewhere between experimentation and deployment. And so to say that we have transformed to an AI first company would be a very misleading statement, but I would say we are using it on a daily basis, but we're in the middle of trying to find the right applications. I think what we've seen more than anything else is you can make big mistakes with AI if you use it incorrectly, and we're an experiential brand. We're all about getting outside and having real connections around a fire pit, so you can see how that would really backfire if you use it incorrectly. So we're in the middle of trying to figure out between experimentation and then the right deployment for ROI. And obviously, as a public company, that's super important. So that's where we're at.
Thanks for that. What about you, Marnie, with MyFitnessPal?
Yeah, well, first of all, MyFitnessPal is actually headquartered here in Austin. So I want to thank everyone for showing up and being here. We're excited to have you in our hometown as well. We have kind of two ways we're looking at AI. I mean, we're an app, really, more than anything. So AI in the app has been there for years. If you've ever used our app to take a photograph of your food or to log with your voice, you can just say like, oh, I had an avocado and a bagel for breakfast. Behind that is all of our AI and large language models that are helping make your experience better every day. And I think there's more that we could add there. But on the back end, within what marketing is doing from an operational standpoint, I think we're at the leading edge. Even within MyFitnessPal, I think that there are things that our marketing team has embraced really quickly. We don't have a big tech debt. We're just marketing. So we have been able to build out some great tools that really streamline and find new opportunities for growth.
And Heather, hype, experimentation, or real deployment?
So I would say we're more in the camp of where Solo Brands is. We're between experimentation and deployment. So it really depends. AI is such a broad word, and I look after transformation from our snacking. So when I'm thinking about are brands like Snickers, M&Ms. That's really what we're focused on. But really making sure that from an AI perspective, from the back end, we have the right efficiencies and the right systems and processes to enable our associates to do great work. Then there's also what the consumer sees, where we are that. So that I would say that's more in deployment, whereas what the consumer sees are experimentation around content creation using AI, and then also just how do we get more efficient with the use of production, et cetera, and then also experimenting with what it looks like with agentic AI. So we're kind of in between.
I love that honest take. I feel like we're kind of in the same place.
Yep.
All right, so Marnie, you get the first tough question. MyFitnessPal just acquired Cal AI, and it's an app built by a 17-year-old. So you said the appeal was marketing boldness and audience clarity when we were talking about it, not just the technology. So that's interesting. What did you see that made it worth pursuing?
Well, first of all, Zach has turned 19, so we're really wish him happy birthday.
Timer.
Right. We were just as scared as we were impressed by that company. They came out of essentially nowhere 18 months ago. And frankly, I don't know how much AI has changed in those 18 months. So, we can give some credit to AI, but honestly, what we have to give credit to is the mind of a young, smart, curious, hardworking group of guys. In this case, they're mostly men, and they tapped into the zeitgeist of what fitness meant to a younger generation. So MyFitnessPal, and I'm sure a lot of you have used it, know it, and when I talk to people much younger, they say, oh, my mom's used it. So I love that about MyFitnessPal. There's so many, it's a heritage brand. We're in the top 25 for Time Magazine, I'm sure, along with my friends here. So one of the greatest companies, and started out in such a cool place. We were like the Cal AI of 20 years ago. But we have to continue to innovate. And what they were able to do is tap into a type of consumer and tap into the way they wanted to be taught. The way kids or young people learn is from others, and generally through brand influencers that look like just regular people. Whereas we're used to very high, Snoop Dogg or, like somebody's out there talking about your brand, like with authority. These were all just little teeny authorities all having to say the same thing. So they rallied a community around a single purpose, which was going to the gym, but also eating well, which is honestly like most of your abs are made in the kitchen, as they say. Like you're not going to really work them just in the Planet Fitness. So we are able to bring that brand together. It really expands who we are as a consumer brand. People know Cal AI for some different things, and continue to be the heritage brand with lots of science-backed wisdom that maybe Cal AI didn't have when they first got started. So we're able to blend those two together and bring, the consumers the best of the best. So that's why.
Quick follow-up on that. What does the decision to keep the Cal AI brand say about the brand strategy?
I think this kind of is why. I think someone asked me, preparing for this, like, what's my hot take or something. It's just this idea that like brands are not like, there's this whole story about Nike, right? Where everyone thinks that they like stopped doing, brand and just did performance marketing. Like there's so many arguments about whether you should do brand or performance marketing. It's just not an argument. Like we shouldn't be ever talking about that. And I bet you my grandchildren will know what the top 50 brands are in their generation. And a lot of them will be the brands we talk about because brands are so sticky. So there's two reasons you would keep a brand. One is it itself has some real clarity in its marketplace. It kind of belongs to a younger generation who maybe wants to be a little faster. You can do everything in MyFitnessPal that you can do in Cal AI. So there's no real technical difference, but the way they've attracted their consumers around ease, it just seems to click. But at the same time, they could really borrow some of the equity from MyFitnessPal. We have 80% unaided awareness. They have 4%. So they have a long way to go to be competing with a brand like ours, even though they did. And so I think we each have something to offer each other.
Yeah, thanks. That's a great take. Whitney, a lot of people want to know more about your campaign. So you recently launched the biggest ever campaign for Zoom. It reintroduced Zoom as an AI-first company, and it really was targeted to consumers and not to the IT buyers. So walk us through that decision.
Yeah, so Zoom's a really interesting company in that we did have this meteoric rise during the pandemic. And so we're now sitting, depending on the quarter, at about 97 to 99% unaided brand awareness. That's an amazing place to be. But the challenge with that is that the perception of that is still very attached to our meetings product, which is just one of the products that Zoom now offers. And so our real challenge with this campaign was, how can we still tap into that cultural momentum that Zoom has, the love that Zoom has? When I tell someone I work at Zoom, usually the first thing they say is, oh, that's amazing because I hate... I'm not going to fill in the blank, but y'all know. And so how can we tap into that preference for Zoom among end users and use that as a wedge with those IT decision makers to say, hey, this is actually what your people want. They're drowning in tools. They have so much friction switching apps, switching systems, but you can actually give them what they need. And what they're begging for is Zoom. And so we did kind of flip the script a little bit, and it's unusual in a way that Zoom is going to that end user. But when you look at kind of the cultural momentum behind it, that's why we decided to go big. It's why we decided to put a really recognizable face with Bo and Yang in the ad. And it's been working really well for us.
So I have to ask you this because you shared something when we were talking about this. Were there any specific creative executions you considered or were asked to consider that you decided to walk away from?
Yeah. So again, Zoom is at the forefront of AI because it's built into all of our tools. We use all of our own tools, and AI is kind of at the center of everything we do. And so when we were in the process of getting this campaign approved, that's when Sora launched. And so the conversation the next day in our executive staff meeting was, can you make the whole commercial using Sora? And Sora is a great product, but it's not quite there yet. And we also really still see the value in that human-led eye. And what we were able to, we did put it together in Sora, scene by scene. It was really interesting, like the characters would often switch genders midway through, from scene to scene or things like that. But when they saw that, and then they saw we had our director, Mike Diva, he works on the SNL digital shorts. He made what he called a crap-o-matic, which was him playing all roles in the scene, and they compared them to each other. And even at a low-quality iPhone shot crap-o-matic, they could see that was going to be a much more impactful piece of work than if we tried to do it all using AI.
I'm adding crap-o-matic to my vocabulary. I really love
Animatic,
that.
just crappier. Yeah.
That's great. All right, Marnie and Heather, I want you to weigh in on this. Marnie, I'm going to start with you because you have a thesis that as AI floods consumers with infinite choices, trusted brands, of which you know a lot about, Heather, actually become more valuable. So not less, right? So can you make that case? And where could you be wrong?
Well, I think it's easy to prove me wrong because there are plenty of new brands every 5 to 10 years that just didn't exist. So it is no guarantee that a trusted brand can rest on its laurels and go, well, everybody just trusts me. Because you can also be one crisis away from not being trusted. So that's another risk. So I think I can be wrong in the absolutes. But I think I know I'm not wrong because if you go back and look at the S&P 500 or the top 10 tech firms for the last 30 years, the same names show up every time because they have some ability to get behind, to watch trends happen, to not catch on to every single one of them, and then go find the ones that do. So I worked at AT&T for 15 years, and we loved being the fast second, because that just saved us being the guy out the door who made the mistake and spent $6 billion on some technology that had no real meaning. So being second is okay for big brands. And what people, I think humans they do gravitate towards brands that they trust, brands that they know, familiarity. So as a new brand, if you're a small brand right now, I would focus the most of my time on being a familiar brand that people have heard of, because, and we learned this from Cal AI, no one had heard of it 18 months ago. Barely any of you have heard of it now until right now. But what you can do is you can build up a community, all talk about it. And then the coup de grace is you launch paid ads and people go, oh, I think I've seen this before. This sounds familiar. And then they go buy it. So you switch from building a community and building awareness to building the need to buy. Other brands can do it, but it's easier to be a trusted brand because you don't have to go through that whole adoption process. So I'm right and I'm wrong.
So how does her argument hold up, Heather?
Yeah, no, and I think it makes a ton of sense, and I echo a lot of what you say. For Mars, we've been around for 100 years. So we have done the iconic brand building over and over again. Everybody knows that our Snickers platform of "You're not you when you're hungry." Everybody knows what M&Ms are and crave them, right? And so we've been building that and investing in brands. We've always been very, very invested in making sure that our brands show up in places where people want to buy and experience our brands. I think what changes with AI is we now have a new layer where we need to get the machine to know and trust us the same way that humans know and trust us. And so what that means is making sure that we have strong signals that AI is pulling, so that when people start going to their agents and shopping for occasions and moments and experiences where they say, okay, I want to I want to go on a road trip with my friends, that our products are considered as part of that purchase set, where it's more of a experience and occasion versus I want to go buy a Snickers bar. And so that's really what we're working on now, is making sure that our brands continue to stay top of mind for AI machines, so that they're also reinforcing the messaging that we've worked so hard to build over the last hundreds of years. So the other thing is that I'll say is that that requires a different muscle. So it's not just about what we are advertising to consumers. It's how do our PDP pages show up? How do we make sure we have the right structured product data so that the AI machine, as a more rational, I know AI thinks it's emotional, but it's not. They can start to then rationalize, okay, this brand has a lot of strong, consistent signals. So therefore, I feel confident recommending this to the person asking for what should I put in my recipe, or what should I take on my road trip.
So let's pull on that thread a little bit. Whitney, you are responsible for a brand that became a verb and a cultural sensation pretty much overnight. And you have, Heather, this charge with these amazing trusted brands, more than 100 years of equity. How do those different origin stories shape your thinking about brand innovation?
I think for us, we came kind of out of that world that Marnie was just talking about, where we were about 15 years old, not quite 15 years old right now. And Zoom came up in a scrappy way, right? And so there is still very much a culture of test, deploy, get it out the door. Test, deploy, get it out the door. And so that can be challenging, I think, when you're comparing to a legacy brand, that there isn't necessarily that acceptance that, like, well, we want it to go okay. We want it to go well, but if it's not, the next thing's going to. So we're just going to keep getting it out the door. And that's challenging in a way, but it's also really freeing in a way. When you think of how short attention cycles have gotten, when you think of, how many different channels we're on across media right now, it gives you this inherent ability to go and test and learn in a way that really can make sure that your marketing teams always have creativity at their forefront wherever they are, whether they're in data analysis or media or brand. There's always that ability to push further and really continue testing and learning.
Yeah, for us, it's putting the consumer at the heart of everything we do. So we are constantly looking at what the trends are. We're constantly trying to predict what new trends will be coming. So a good example is on TikTok, there was a big trend going on around freeze-dried Skittles that people were making at home. And so then we created that product and then extended it further to our M&M's brand as well. And so for us, it's always making sure that we have the products to meet consumers where they are, what they're looking for, and making sure that where we have the right to show up, that we are showing up with options and new products that people can know and love and enjoy.
For the next 100 years.
Yes, exactly.
Right? Liz, I want to switch gears a little bit, because you have, innovation and disruption is not only about AI. And I want to talk a little bit about experience amplification. So the question for you, Solo Stove has done something that a lot of brands talk about and very few actually do really successfully, creating real world brand experiences that people, really gather around. They show up for backyard activations, tailgates, cultural moments. Okay. So how do you think about experiential as a strategic marketing tool, not just a gesture? And how do you make sure those moments work across channels?
Yeah, thanks. We really have pivoted, I'd say, and it was all based on consumer research. So we did a big study last fall, which basically showed that people feel nowadays, and it's all about consumer insights, but basically always drive everything we do, but it showed that a lot of people are feeling completely lonely, isolated, depressed. There's a huge amount of stress. And really, and we were hearing this over and over and over again, and parents were telling us that they have trouble even having conversations with their teens without the cell phone in front of them constantly, that they're even booking dinner dates via text with their family members or texting upstairs to say, come down for dinner. It was like, so we saw this trend of almost like overwhelmingness. And the study showed that 90% of people said if we gave them something that they could enjoy outside, that they think their health would improve and they would enjoy it. So that seemed like a very big green space for us to say, we're a product about getting outside, putting your phone down, actually connecting, having a real conversation with your family, making s'mores. You can't make s'mores and text at the same time. It's very sticky. It will wreck your phone. And also, it's just natural. It's where you take your hair out, you put your hair down, put your hair in a ponytail, wear your sweats, you're yourself, have your neighbors over. You don't have to prep for days for it, and have real conversations with your neighbors. And so our study showed that people were craving that. So our thought was, if we could be an antidote to all that chaos. And so one of our first activations was in New York City, right outside Grand Central Station, probably the most chaotic area there is. And we put an oasis, a backyard. Adirondack chairs around a fire pit. We actually did what we said. It's a real fireside chat around the fire, and talked to people and enjoyed. And people made s'mores. They made pizza in our pizza ovens. They griddled on our new griddle. And we showed them our new products, which basically makes your backyard an oasis, kind of a getaway. So you don't have to go on a fancy vacation. You can just come home and chill in your backyard. And we think that and connecting around it is what's going to help drive our sales. That's what the difference is. We have a smokeless fire pit. We call it the world's most popular smokeless fire pit. We have a new series that just came out. That's why we're at South by Southwest. It's called the Summit Series. It's so that you don't smell when you're around the pit and smoke doesn't take away from the conversation. So we're accentuating that and saying, you can have your dream backyard. In fact, one little plug, if you go to our site, these are s'mores. We give these out. We're at the Fast Company Grill, and we would have made them for you, but we had permitting issues with trying to get an open flame. But anyway, you can still grab one of these.
Hot tip,
and we have QR codes, and you can win a chance for a dream backyard. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, at the core of our experiential strategy is a real consumer insight that people connected with. And that's what we're going based on. And if you do that, it doesn't matter whether it's, you're not yourself when if you don't have a Snickers, whatever, I know that one. And for us, it's, if you really want to chill, a good way to do that and connect with your family and friends and your neighbors who you might not have met, get a fire pit in your backyard. Get a pizza oven and invite your neighbors over. So that's the reason behind our experiential events. So that's why we're at the Players Tailgate at the Super Bowl. We had chefs and wannabe chefs making tailgate favorites on our griddle. And that's why we're here at South by Southwest. So you'll see us doing a lot more of that.
But I think that also says something about AI, right? The AI wasn't supposed to just be something that we use all the time to use more AI, right? It was supposed to give us time back, right? To
use AI and then get a Solo Stove.
I'll say something crazy here. Like, Zoom doesn't want you in meetings all day. Like, shocking, right? But we want to give you that time back and make it less cumbersome so that you can go do things like sit around your Solo Stove and eat your M&Ms.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I want to ask you a quick follow-up question on that, because I think a lot of brands would like to do more experience amplification. What's the measurement model for that?
Excellent question. So we do it in a balance. It's like everything. You don't tilt from left to right entirely. We do a lot of performance marketing in addition to experiential marketing. we all have KPIs. I've got to drive traffic to our site to have people buy our products, period. That's what we all do. But you can't forget about the emotional connection. And so we are balancing that. We're also doing our strategy, which helps us, is we can't afford to be in the Super Bowl. We would love to be in the Super Bowl. But can we be the tailgate before the Super Bowl? And we're finding that people appreciate those moments too. They don't have to cost a lot of money. So we're figuring out the right ROI and the right KPI. And then the last thing that I would say is that we connect it with our community. So we usually tie in with a charity or some kind of event to engage our community. And we also amplify it with media. So it's not just the experiential event. And anybody who does this for a living knows all of those things have to work together to make a successful program.
You're definitely doing it right.
Yeah, we did the same thing actually with Skittles this year, where we had a live performance of the Super Bowl ad. So we had it was sweepstakes. People could enter to win, and then literally delivered that live performance to the person that won. And then we filmed it, put it on YouTube, and supported it with a lot of paid media. But again, just to also give another example from an experiential perspective of how that can be amplified and brought into the media mix in a powerful way.
Oh, that's great. Marnie, Liz, Whitney, I got a question. I'd love to hear from each of you if you have a good one for me on this. What's a bet you made with your brand in the last couple of years that maybe didn't pay off? And what did you actually learn from it?
Well, we were trying to compete against these 17-year-olds for a little while. And there were a lot of bets that us not 17-year-olds were taking that maybe didn't pan out. I think it really revolves around trying to, emulate a strategy that someone else is using. And I think sometimes you get too caught up by what they're doing and how you can do it too, and what are the ways. So we invested in trying to expand our influencers. And the way we did it was through these sort of, honestly, like get rich quick kind of influencer marketing tools that just don't do anything. They're not authentic. They were just too concocted by some digital company that made them. And so I think that was the wrong bet. When we got to know the way that things were working at Cal AI and understanding the way they were truly authentically reaching to the people that they were working with in a scaled way, which was where the AI came in, I think that's when we learned that bet was probably never going to pan out, no matter how much maturity we put behind it. So I think maybe the bigger meta advice is like, don't chase your competitor's strategy. Don't try to reproduce it, because they cut that hole. They found that hole, and you already made that hole for them. So maybe not trying to fill that hole really quick. So I don't know.
That's a big
don't
insight.
Tell my boss
like
that
not chasing competitor's strategy, because that's really, really tempting.
Yeah, it was, and it didn't work. And we'll just leave it here between us. So.
Whitney, have you got one for us? Or Liz?
Yeah, I'll say, Zoom used to do, what we still do, an event every year called Zoomtopia. And what might be kind of odd for us is that used to be a purely in-person event. But using, our own tools, we've really been able to scale that event so much more by including webinars and events on the backside of it, and then breaking it down with our field marketing teams all across the country to then increase the reach of personal 20, 25 people max events all across the world. And so kind of taking what was the model of like one big event, making it hybrid, not because of, people can't be around because of a pandemic, but because that's just how people often want to attend events now. And then giving them something more bespoke and exclusive if they did attend that virtual experience.
We have a ton of examples of what we shouldn't do again, but I'll mention one. I think it's what the Solo Stove got a huge brand awareness with Snoop Dogg, big Snoop Dogg campaign. But it was a one trick. And then what do you do after? Like, where do you go from there? So if there's one thing I think we learned from it was great to build a lot of awareness, but do a lot more special moments. Like, don't anchor in one thing. Look for lots of ways to connect with people. So for example, our Super Bowl tailgate activation, we had a Squash the Beef campaign. And that was literally put this campaign, I kid you not, in 3 weeks, and had a full activation and an idea in it. And the insight came from, there's teams and rivalries all over the place. And we have a griddle that you can smash, literally a smash burger. So you can smash the beef. And we're like, let's jump on it. Jumped on that and ended up having a Squash the Beef campaign. So many customers wrote in. They had their beefs. My beef was that I'm a diehard Detroit Lions fan. And somehow we just always managed to not make the playoffs. And it's just not, so Squash the Beef and that ended up being a big hit for us. So I think we're looking for many cultural moments to jump on instead of hooking to one big one that if you put too much money in it and then where do you go with it? It doesn't give you enough legs. So that would be one thing I'd say.
Heather, I'm looking for a different take from you. The data shows CMOs are allocating more to performance marketing than to brand. Is that the right call, or is that something where we're going to regret?
I think it's such a brand by brand. I wouldn't say that we should be looking at it across across brands overall, because I think it depends on what the brand is, what the brand stands for. So from a product, a consumer packaged goods product, we are very much, yes, programmatic is important to our media mix, but it is also about making sure that we're emotionally connecting with our consumers, which happen in real life experiences. It also happens in other sorts of way that you can't just do all through programmatic. So I shy away from those big stats because I think it's such a, my panelists may have very different perspectives on that, where we're really looking at what is that overarching experience? How do we make sure that our brand is showing up in the right way and that the consumer can actually really feel what the message we're trying to convey versus being, we don't need to be everywhere all the time across everything if it doesn't make sense for our brands to be there.
Right. So it's a very brand specific question. Yeah. Any disagreement from the panel?
Well, my thought is, what is brand? What is performance marketing? I don't even know what those words mean, and I'm a chief marketing officer. So I think it's just, is it the channel? Is it the message? So I think I would just, it could be a dissertation you'd have to write by defining all the terms up front, and I don't think they're clearly
Maybe we should
defined.
ask Marcus Collins. He was here earlier taking us to school. It was great.
Yeah. Well, we all define it differently regardless of a dictionary definition. So I think that just sort of also adds to the variety that you might get as far as an answer is concerned.
All right, so I want to get a last take from you guys. 3 years from now, what does a great brand marketer know how to do that most people in the room aren't doing today?
I'll take a stab at that. It's such a hard question.
It is a hard question, but you're a great group.
Who wrote this question? Because it's hard with AI to figure out what's happening next week, let alone.
Okay, next year then. Let's stick it to next year. 3 years is.
But I can share on the AI front. I actually am a co-founder of a big AI firm in Boston and started diving into this in 2022 as a marketer and really trying to learn it. And if there was one thing that I took from that, it's that you really have to build a culture in your company around learning and making sure that everyone, it's not just the people that you think, for example, it's not necessarily the IT department that is going to lead the AI transformation in your company. 2 people on my team, one of them's here. She's in the audience. I love her. She's filming, Madeline. Most curious person you'll ever meet and process-oriented. And guess what? What do you need when you're doing an AI workflow and trying to develop an agent? You need process-oriented, very curious, fast learners. And another woman on our team, Jenny, another one who, she's a little quiet and but she's reading this stuff and she's experimenting it and making her own agents for a hobby. Those are the people you want on your team. So if there's one thing that I would tell myself and my team, it's build the culture where you can identify those folks to help you transform.
Like it's a culture of builders, right?
Yes.
I'll add to, so I actually heard, I heard it at a Brand Innovators event like 2-3 years ago, actually. Someone said that they set aside one Friday morning every month on their calendar to go have breakfast with someone new. And I've started doing that, and it has been the most transformative thing that I do, to talk to people from different industries, different job families, that are facing different challenges. And I think it just gives you so much more to bring back to your teams of diversity of thought and being able to ask, what's breaking through with you, and kind of be able to do your own testing. So.
Well, I love this answer because I actually, like the tinkering in your own hobby is whenever someone comes to me, I say, well, what do you like to do in your personal life? And then I always give them an idea of like how they can play with Cloud Cowork or something to do it. So, because the thing you'll spend the most time on is something you actually care about, maybe not so much work every time. So I agree with that. But I actually think as the future is leadership in an AI world. So you've got your builders, they're going to be your more junior people. You've got like people who can scale it, right? That's your kind of mid-management. And so none of these people are going away. Nobody's getting fired. I mean, there will be people get fired if they don't figure this out, but you got to know how to build. You got to know how to scale. But the people at the top have to set a vision. Because I think I was in a thing earlier where everyone's like, well, just use AI. It's like, for what and when and where? And what's the regulatory stuff and the legal stuff we need to keep? So I think it's really important for the next couple of years to really hone your leadership skills, the same ones you use for regular stuff, but just kind of anchored on how we're going to get to the new, like a new culture, flexibility around it, and just keep moving forward.
Heather, can you wrap us up with the last take?
Yeah, just to build on what everybody has said, I would also just say that I think we'll see more of a melding of functions. So people will still be responsible for R&D, for sales, for marketing, but you'll see people start to understand each other's functions and worlds a lot more, because if we think about AI and how our products show up, it is a across the company effort. It's not just one person's job. And so being able to understand how people get their jobs done and kind of the connection of a less siloed universe, I think is something that will be coming through.
That really resonates. Thank you so much, brand innovators, and to each of you. What an amazing panel for us to learn from.
Thank you.